The clouds blocked up the moon, causing the night to be even darker. The lightless, empty parking garage felt more like an abandoned tomb. With a flash of light and a deafening boom, she appeared. The static coming off of her body accentuated her muscular build. She spotted the man cloaked in shadow clinging to the wall near the garage entrance and blew him a kiss. He jumped down and walked with her. "Are you nervous?" he asked, unsure of his desire to know the answer. She gave him a smirk as they made their way to the top level. There it was, the confidence he admired. "You can beat him, right?" She paused for a second before responding. "Nope." He nearly tripped over his own feet hearing this. However, nothing else was said between them. Just before the final level, he clinged to the outside wall and walked the remaining distance, where a man was waiting. The massive man was built like a statue with bronze skin that seemed to barely contain his muscle. He was seemingly at the border of 7 feet tall with black shoulder-length hair that was tied back. "Hello again," he said with a tone that was imposing but not intimidating. "It's nice to see you, Liliana and the spider." Eyes rolling at the fact that no one bothers to remember his name, Anansi sat on his perch. And then he thought, Jason might not have even heard his name. Liliana didn't say a word. She simply smiled and nodded. An intensity in her eyes betrayed her expression, though. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut, and 2 shadowy figures sitting on the wall across from Nancy took form. One lifted its arm, and as it came down, lightning struck in the distance. As if a starting gun had been fired, the 2 fighters charged at each other. Liliana slid to a stop just out of the reach of the Musketeer's arm as he shot it out to grab her. She took a boxer's stance and began to weave around him, landing a punch every time she dodged. However, 1 step in the wrong direction was all it took. He was behind her with his arm around her throat. As she flailed and struggled to free herself, static began to fill the air as a bolt of lightning struck the 2 of them. The 2 picked themselves up, still able to continue somehow. Jason was covered in a lion pelt made of golden light. He was unscathed, but Liliana's smile never faded. A gold and silver gauntlet covered the hand holding a similarly colored sledgehammer. Anansi marveled at the craftsmanship of Hephaestus and the dwarves. Her first swing managed to make contact, sending Jason flying into the wall before he could get his bearings. She was on him, knocking him into the air, and a bolt of lightning seemingly launched her at him. She slammed him back down to the ground, nearly breaking through the concrete. With a devastating punch, he launched her into the wall below Anansi. Blood and her deranged smile plastered on her face. Picking herself up, she spun her hammer. With a flash of lightning, it was gone. Charging at him again, fists up, she swung as he reached for her. The instant she was about to make contact, a flash went off, and she was behind him, punching his back, putting her entire being into it. Jason dropped to the ground. Another flash, and she was gone. Looking to the heavens, they found her. Hammer in hand, she dropped like a meteor. The impact destroyed several levels. As the dust settled, Anansi saw the looks on the faces of the figures across him, and one had a look of pride while the other looked shocked. Jason was standing over her, however. They both seemed to be exhausted. Her hand was by her side and open as if waiting for something. Suddenly, her hammer flew across the room and struck Jason's head. As he dropped to the ground, she lunged for him, wrapping her legs around his waist and putting him in a chokehold. Everyone could see the almost insane determination in her eyes. That hit to the head must have done a lot more than originally thought. Jason was barely putting up a fight, and Nancy's heart was drumming with anticipation. What would happen next? Did he have any tricks he could use? Leaving his perch, he stood on the remainder of the ceiling above them. Suddenly, a voice caught everyone's attention. Can't afford to lose you, Jason. The arrogant tone pissed him off almost as much as what they did next. A spear hit Lily in the eye, and she screamed out in pain. She let Jason go and pulled the spear out of her head, throwing it aside. He walked with an arrogance to match his voice, dressed like a slimy businessman. The contestant chosen by Kukulane made himself the center of attention. He picked up his spear and poured it at Liliana. She closed her eyes as he thrust it toward her. However, the blade clanged to the ground and the pommel smacked him in the chin as Anansi landed on it. Jason's fist shot past Anansi's head and landed on the slime ball's face. Everyone agreed to not interrupt. Thanks to you, I have lost. Not only that, but you blatantly attempt to attack a god. He was physically straining to hold his rage back. Anansi, Thor, Liliana, I apologize for the disrespect and I will be taking my leave.